This question has been bothering me for many years, ever since I had an accident in a car. Uh, During the accident, the car turned over and I lost consciousness. But what bothered me was that the experience of losing consciousness was just as if there was a 35 millimeter film going on a projection and somebody just took a pair of scissors and went snip and everything just disappeared. And what took its place was blankness, no awareness, no me, no nothing. And afterwards, I thought when I had come round and recovered and everything, this must be what it's like to be dead. But I didn't like that thought because it didn't harmonize with my longing to know that I was or I am this awareness. It just totally seemed to contradict it.
Mhm. Yeah, so would you like me to respond now?
Yes, please.
Okay, well, first, I'm glad that you recovered. It sounds like it was a difficult experience. But this awareness, you're describing exactly the nature of awareness. So when we go to sleep, all appearances cease because the senses are no longer operating. We can have dreams in sleep whereby the physical body is no longer active, but the mind takes on the role of an illusory physical body. So it's an illusion of an illusion. So we experience what feels like some kind of existence. But when we go into deep sleep, there's no longer that capacity either. There is just consciousness, awareness. And what this is called is a non conceptual void or a non conceptual state. And what this means is that you experience pure, timeless awareness. So, time is just the distance between two perceptions, right? So, without the perceiving perceptions, becomes timeless. And in my experience, if I was to ask you first about sleep, when you go to sleep, if you have a deep sleep, when you wake up, do you know if it was a good sleep or not?
Only from the physical reaction that I feel
Right.
afterwards, like I feel
So
rested.
yeah, so there's some benefit to
Yes.
being in that space of non-conceptual void. So
Mm.
I always laugh at this because the absolute has given us this great puzzle to find your true nature, but at the same time, it's going to show it to us every single night, right? Which I think is hilarious. So when we have the thoughts we normally have about sleep are less are more calm than about a forced unconsciousness due to an accident. So I would invite you to have a look at what about that unconscious space. How do you remember it as the perception of it versus your ideas about the whole accident together? Because I suspect that the actual moment of the accident where you was unconscious was peaceful, free, and liberated.
You could say that, but there was absolutely nothing. There's just a blank.
Right.
No
And our
experience.
exactly. Well, there is an experience. There's the experience of the blank. So you experience non-conceptual void. That there is if there wasn't an experience, you wouldn't know that it had even happened. I wouldn't know I'd been to sleep. So when you described this earlier, the last 5 minutes, You was very clear that there was this period of unconsciousness where you experienced blank.
Yes.
Okay. So from the waking mind, that feels scary.
Yes.
There's no appearances. But from within that space of blank, let's call it, there's just peace.
There's absolutely
It's,
nothing.
yeah, which is peace. It's like the egoic identity, the sense of I am,
Mm.
is quite scared of that void, right?
Yes.
That void leads to things like addiction, consumption, bad decisions, trying to escape that void. And the greatest peace we can find is moving towards that sense of emptiness. It's like the moth does, like, is drawn to the flame. To It's a sort of an analogy. The moth goes to the flame, but when it connects with the flame, it's itself dissolves, and there's just this luminous nature. So with our sense of self, the I amness, it disappears in sleep because it's transient. But because we place so much power on the sense of I amness, we're scared of that. But if you, when I did the little meditation today, what we think like, this is this bag. Excuse my funny analogy. This bag is the sense of I am, and this controller is my past, and this TV controller is my future, and we give more importance to the bag of the self over these appearances. But when you close your eyes, what's actually happening is the sense of self comes and goes just as readily as the thoughts about this and the thoughts about that. So, this identification from the ego is what I teach, not an ego death, right? What I teach is deprioritize this sense of I am, because all it is another thought. And you know this because how often do you spend your time during any one day walking around saying, I am, I am, I am, I am, I am, I am. It's very intermittent. If someone says Joe, I am appears, right? If I need to go to do a talk in town, I'm working, I'm totally not there, I'm writing or recording, then I've got to go into town. So the ego appears again because I can't get into town without it. It is the ego that goes downstairs, looks at the clock, says I've got to get there, get on my bicycle, ride where to go. All of that is I am. But even as I do that, it's intermittent. Once I'm on my bicycle, there's no Joe again for a while. So my relationship with my sense of I am is increasingly as a very beneficial, practical tool, but it isn't who I am. I am consciousness. I am pure consciousness. So I'm not afraid of that, the empty void, because I know that that's all there is anyway. Everything else that appears, it appears from that void. Where else would it come from? That void is the absolute, and everything appears from that. The dynamic energy of the absolute is what we call life. This is spoken of, and you've probably heard it in the Tantra teachings of Shakti and Shiva.
Hmm.
So Shiva is that void, the unconscious, non-conceptual void, and Shakti is the appearances, the life. And Tantra's been very corrupted, but what that used to mean was that the inseparability of Shakti and Shiva as one. The appearances is Shiva, and the Shakti is Shiva. They appear as one, but Shakti is dynamic because it can come and go, but it's inseparable from Shiva. So all of us when we eventually stop having this Shakti energy, we just become Shiva. But with that anyway, with that anyway, it's like the screen of the movie. It's always a screen, whether it's got the before the accident and then the projector turns off during the accident and then the projector turns on again after the accident. The screen never changed. And this familiarity with this process is what begins to create a sense of comfort. I never say anything's going to be overnight, but it's a practice of realizing that the fear that we feel when a non-conceptual avoid appears is an indication of how we are buying into the illusion of a separate self. The more we recognize that there's only oneness, the more comfortable we feel about there being no concepts. And what's really funny is most humans want less concepts because they call that relaxing. Right? Like, I'm going to relax. Let's reduce the concepts. Let's reduce the, oh, there's too many's gone now. Now I'm scared. Like, it's like that is relaxing. So my approach to the end of the human body is that it will be just as enjoyable as what it is right now, but it would just be free of concepts.
So it's really something I have to practice more and learn to have more trust.
Yeah, well, yes, exactly. I invite people to, when you wake up in the morning, just reflect on what what the hell just happened, right? And yeah, it's one of these things where you might have a realization about the emptiness of experience, but it can also come from the inseparability. So the metaphor that sometimes is used a lot, and I use it as well, is the ocean and the wave. But I also add the shore. So before recognition, I believe I'm the shore. And that means I'm limited and there's waves lapping against the shore. And it's a bit annoying. So that might be bills, a footache, a headache, someone that you don't like. And then there's slightly bigger waves that are coming in as well on occasion. And that might be some other thing. I need a new car, I lost my job. And then we all know there's a tsunami coming, which is the end of life. We know that as the shore, there is a tsunami coming that's going to wipe the shore away. And that is living as a separate self. And it can be fun, but it has this underlying discomfort, which is what the Buddha called dukkha. It's an underlying, and you can never get rid of that underlying sense of discomfort if you stay as the shore, because you are just living as a separate entity. It's very lonely. The shore needs nice sand. It wants people to visit the beach. It wants it to be a certain way. It's very, very invested in everything. And it definitely wants the waves to stop. And it doesn't even want to discuss the tsunami. But when you recognize that you're not the shore, you are a wave on the ocean, then you can start to feel, well, I'm a wave on the ocean. I'm closer to home. I'm not bothered by the other waves now. We're all here together. I'm not so bothered about which part of the ocean I am because it all seems pretty similar. So that's kind of like beginning to find comfort. But then the greatest realization goes, wait, I am the ocean. I am the ocean. So what matters? Which wave is being expressed? Waves come and go, the ocean remains. The wave of Joe comes and goes, the ocean remains. The wave of one of my family members, they all still are alive currently, but we never know, comes and goes. My pet wave comes and goes. My job wave comes and goes, but all the waves come and go. And I'm the ocean. And after a while, in my experience, I begin to enjoy the waves rising, abiding, and subsiding as my own nature. So it's not like the suffering ends if something comes and goes, and it's I don't like it, but something else is added to that, which is wisdom about its true nature. So it's not, you don't become completely impervious to the changing and fluctuations of life. My goldfish died and I just don't care at all. We don't become sort of narcissistic. So we still feel a sadness, but the sadness is pervaded by the joy of being.
Mm. Yeah.
And then the ocean itself, when the tidal wave comes, it just goes, wow. So you become in awe of the appearances of life. And I've said this in another talk, but I call it ow wow, because I not anymore, but I used to kick everything in this house with my big toe, and it would go ow. But the ow is immediately followed with this wow of just awe of your own being. And in Tibetan Dzogchen, one of the most advanced teachings, one of the greatest teachers called Longchenpa, and I love this and I use it all the time in my own life. He says that all appearances are the adornments of mind. Imagine that. All appearances are the decoration of
Yeah.
your own nature. So
Mm.
when you view life like that, there is this, there's the suffering, but there's this infinite compassion that pervades the suffering, and that yet there's this infinite wisdom that there isn't really any suffering at all either. So it's like it's all happening at the same time. And then this leads you to become a very stable member of your community when things are difficult. So something happens and everyone is behaving like the shore, and you're not walking around going, don't be upset, it's just the ocean. No, you embrace their shoreness with your compassion and wisdom that you know you're the ocean, and you almost communicate these teachings through your own stability rather than trying to talk at people who are upset. So it becomes very powerful, but that same thing applies to yourself. You don't kind of force yourself to be happy about bad things, because then that's
Mm.
not it. You just
No.
relax and you recognize the wisdoms, and it will start to percolate into your life.